Hello, this is Little Green Ghouls, and welcome back to Goosebumps Revisited, a series where I break down a classic Goosebumps book and any episode that goes along with it. I will also be telling notes for Goosebumps cliches and classic moments. This week, I'm excited to visit The Headless Ghost. I didn't really know what to expect going into this book. I had never read it, and it's not one you hear discussed very often. I ended up thinking it was just pretty average. It had some fun moments with some gory ghost stories, but I found the structure of the book a bit disorganized and the protagonist annoying. I don't think this is a must-read by any means, and I would have been fine never reading it. I think this is an okay cover. I really like the purple and pink combo we have going on, but I've mentioned before that ghosts just don't do it for me, so this cover never really stood out to me as a kid. I do like that we have some classic 90s hair on this ghost though, a mushroom with a center part. The 2004 slime border goes with orange and blue, and I think this takes an already somewhat boring cover and makes it even more dull. The purple and pink just stood out more to me, and there's just not much more to say about this. The 2018 cover definitely goes in a different direction with the Headless Ghost, but is it weird to say that it feels like it's trying too hard? This book does just not contain the level of action to warrant this kind of cover. I do like how purple the house is and how the blue ghost contrasts with it, but I just think this cover is too much how do you do, fellow kids? I didn't spot much merchandise for the Headless Ghost, just this appearance in a mini puzzle. However, in the back of the book I did find this Goosebumps TV show promo, which was interesting to see because I'd been curious just how many books were out before the show went into production. Our front tag says, "Major headache," and our back tag says, "They've got a real head start," which I don't think makes much sense, even in the context of the story, but let's read the blurb on the back. Everyone knows about Hill House. It's the biggest tourist attraction in town. That's because it's haunted. Haunted by the ghost of a 13-year-old boy, a boy with no head. Dwayne and Stephanie love Hill House. It's dark and creepy and totally scary. Still, they've never actually seen the ghost, until the night they decide to go on a search for his head. Okay, let's start this summary. The book opens with our introduction to Dwayne, and he wants us to know that he and his best friend Stephanie are peeping toms. Sometimes we sneak out late at night in masks and stare into kids' windows. This is literally the fourth sentence in the book. He's supposedly not getting off on the peeping aspect, but the scaring aspect instead, because he and Stephanie like to leave behind rubber severed fingers and howl like werewolves under the windows. These two demon children just in general seem to really enjoy terrorizing their neighborhood. They just better hope they don't live in a stand your ground state. The kids have dubbed themselves the twin terrors of Wheeler Falls, but they're actually not related, even though everybody thinks they are. They're just besties who look exactly the same and act the same. This book thinks we need an origin story on the Twin Terrors for some reason, so we're being sent back to last Halloween to learn how these two kids got into voyeurism. I'm not joking about this book going all in on the peeping, because already on page 2 we have more of it. I was standing outside Stephanie's front window in my scary Grim Reaper costume. I stood up on my tiptoes, trying to peek inside to check out her costume. "Hey, beat it, Dwayne, no looking," she shouted through the closed window. Then she pulled down the shade. "I wasn't looking, I was just stretching," I shouted back. Dwayne wants to see Stephanie's costume because every year she has great ones, such as last year when she was a pile of green toilet paper in an interpretation of iceberg lettuce. As Dwayne is waiting for Stephanie, we're treated to a pathetic attempt at an opening cliffhanger. A huge hairy animal jumped me from behind and chewed off my head. Where was the effort here, Stein? We already know he's fine, this is a flashback. Surprise, Dwayne wasn't decapitated. It's just Stephanie dressed up as some sort of black cat monster. She then pounces a group of unsuspecting kids and gathers up their dropped candy as they flee in terror. Dwayne then comments how he wishes they could do this every night, to which Stephanie responds, "We can." And there you have it, the origin story of the Twin Terrors. Real riveting stuff and totally worth its own couple chapters. I think we're officially done with last Halloween and back in present, but I don't know, the timeline in this book is janky. Dwayne decides to change topics and jumps into describing Hill House, which is an old stone house that, you guessed it, is haunted, and where the star of our book, the Headless Ghost, resides. This is a pretty clear reference to The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Dwayne and Stephanie are big fans of Hill House and have taken the tour so many times they even have a preferred tour guide. Stein couldn't think of how to include the story of Hill House naturally, so we get some world-class pros. Do you want to know the story of Hill House? Well, here's the story that Otto, Edna, and the other guides tell. We are now thrust into a mini ghost story about Hill House. Essentially, an old sea captain built a house for his wife. She waited for him to return, he was lost at sea, he came back as a ghost, but she'd already left. So, he's left to wander the hall shouting Annabelle while looking for her. Then, 100 years ago from present day, the Craw family moved in and had a son named Andrew, who liked abusing animals. Like, this child tossed cats out of windows for shits and gigs, but Andrew got what was coming to him when he came across a hidden room in the house and the ghost of the old sea captain ripped off his head and hid it somewhere in the house. The sea captain then vanished from the house, but Hill House is still haunted by Headless Andrew, the animal abuser. During this ghost story, I did like the description of the sea captain. As he leaned down to lower the wick, the ghost appeared. The sea captain. Over the years, the ghost had grown into an old and terrifying creature. He had long white fingernails that curled into spirals. Cracked black teeth poked between swollen dry lips, and a scraggly white beard hid the ghost's face from view. Now that Dwayne shared the ghost story, we jump back a few weeks ago to when Dwayne and Stephanie first met the ghost. The Twin Terrors are out wreaking havoc by howling into sleeping kids' windows, putting chicken bones in mailboxes, and throwing rubber spiders on sleeping children. Stephanie is growing tired of bullying the same few kids and thinks they need to step up their game by haunting Hill House itself. They don't actually intend to haunt Hill House, just scare themselves on a tour, so I don't know why it's presented as haunting Hill House. Despite it supposedly being the middle of the night, they're off to tour Hill House, and while reading this, I assumed they were using tour jokingly, aka gonna break into Hill House and give themselves a tour, but no, they arrive at Hill House and are greeted by Otto, their favorite tour guide, who I guess just hangs around at midnight hoping for someone to come take a tour. They go on this tour so often that Otto knows them by name, and surprisingly, there are other people waiting to start this tour. The plan is apparently to sneak away from the tour and explore the house. Hill House should be known as Hill Mansion though, because it's 3 stories high with 9 fireplaces and 30 rooms, so plenty of opportunity for Dwayne and Stephanie to get lost. On the tour, Dwayne and Stephanie are fucking obnoxious and mouth along to all of Otto's tour because they have every single thing memorized and they want the world to know it. They are Hill House superfans. This part of the book is treated like going on an actual tour of Hill House, with Dwayne presenting everything Otto is saying as if he's giving the tour, and it's a bizarre way to structure a story. We learn about Headless Andrew's sister, Hannah, who lost her mind after Andrew's death. She ended up spending the next 80 years sitting in her room playing with dolls until she died. Now her ghost likes to sit in a rocking chair surrounded by creepy antique dolls. We then get to learn about Andrew's mother, who died via falling down the stairs. Fun fact and public service announcement, 12,000 people die every year from this. Keep your stairs free of clutter, people. Dwayne and Stephanie are getting ready to ditch the tour group to explore when Dwayne notices a pale blonde boy with a black turtleneck and black jeans staring at them. He's thrown off by this because he didn't see any other kids at the start of the tour. Stephanie's like, fuck that kid, and sneaks off anyways. Their first solo trip is the Green Room, whose claim to fame is giving 2 guests an aggressive purple rash after they stayed the night in it. Spooky. Stephanie of course has to give Dwayne a rash fake out as she pretends to be suddenly itchy. Once this is revealed to be the obvious joke that it was, Stephanie then freezes in horror because she spotted the head in a chapter cliffhanger. Just kidding again, Stein just can't stop the laughs because we have another fake out with Stephanie. Turns out, pointing and screaming is a really effective way to scare people. They explore Headless Andrew's rooms next in a search for the head, and I have to say they're really half-assing the search. They keep looking under beds and behind toys, as if the skull would just be sitting there and nobody noticed over the course of 100 years. As Dwayne searches under another bed, the quill starts moving on its own in another attempt at a chapter cliffhanger. This is once again just Stephanie, except this time I don't think she intentionally scared Dwayne. She was just searching the bed, and Dwayne we learn is a hyper-reactive character, freaking out at everything he comes across. They move on to the next room and they both freeze because they spotted the skull wedged behind the door. Dwayne goes to pick it up but it rolls away and lands at Stephanie's feet. She's in shock and stares at the 2 little round holes looking up at her. Dwayne scoops it up and can't believe he's holding the skull. That's when we learn that these 2 kids are exceptionally stupid. They're holding a goddamn bowling ball. I don't care how dark it is, no person with 2 brain cells to rub together is going to mix up a bowling ball and a human skull, especially after carrying it around. The kids finally realize that maybe they shouldn't be searching the popular tour rooms, but the forbidden rooms on the 3rd floor. I mean, if you're going to be trespassing like this, wouldn't it make sense to check out the forbidden floor like right away? Otherwise, what's the point? But after this bowling ball fiasco, I'm not expecting any sort of logic with these 2 characters again. They make it to the 3rd floor and enter the first door that they see, which ends up being completely empty. The room has a small door at the back, so they decide to enter through that and see where it leads them, which takes them to a boiler room, which has another connecting door to a sewing room. Dwayne checks the yarn basket for heads but comes up empty-handed. This room is connected to yet another room, but this room is darker because the windows are partially boarded up. While creeping through this mystery room in the dark, they hear something slowly thumping towards them. They suddenly spot pairs of eyes all around them, because wouldn't you know it, this room is full of cats, because why the fuck not at this point? The cats all start screeching and hollering, which causes Stephanie and Dwayne to shuffle quickly into the next connected room. This ends up actually being a long, narrow servant's hallway. The kids decide they've had enough exploring for one night and head down the hall in hopes of finding a staircase that leads them out of there. As they walk down the hall, both kids start freaking out because ghost hands are grabbing at them from all around. They run down the hall, flaring their hands in the air, screaming and stuff, when all of a sudden they come to the realization it's just cobwebs. Gee, cobwebs in an old house. Scary stuff. They reach the end of the hall, only to discover no stairs, just another hallway leading to the left. Instead of doubling back, they venture deeper into the house. They reach a door at the end of the hallway, when they hear laughter, like a party on the other side of the door. Stephanie is hopeful it's the tour guide, but Dwayne reminds her that the tour doesn't go to the 3rd floor. They open the door and it's another empty room, so they're pretty convinced they just heard a ghost on the other side. They decide to scoot on out of there because Dwayne remembers Andrew lost his head after stumbling across a ghost by accident. They still can't find the stairs and begin opening doors at random. This results in Dwayne having the classic white sheet over some old furniture scare. They continue racing room to room until they finally come across a door with a horseshoe nailed to the top. They open it and discover a narrow servant staircase. They get about 10 steps down when they realize footsteps are coming up at them rapidly. There isn't enough time to escape, but surprise, it's just Otto. He chews them out for leaving the group and doesn't buy the BS about getting lost. They rejoin the tour group now hosted by Edna, where we learn what happened to Joseph Craw. He gets some actual creepy imagery with his death because he mysteriously burnt to death in a fireplace, and all that was found of him was 2 charred hands stuck gripping the marble mantle. The kids have decided they've had enough of Hill House and leave the tour, but on their way out they see the pale turtleneck boy from earlier watching them closely. Once outside, Dwayne is untangling Stephanie's scarf from a bush when he hears a voice whisper, "Did you find my head?" He turns around and spots Turtleneck Boy, who denies whispering anything. He introduces himself as Seth and wants to know if they found anything cool when they ditched the tour group. He then offers to show them some real ghosts. He says he broke into Hill House after the last tour because that's when all the ghosts really come out, and goes on to describe his ghost encounter. I was standing at the bottom of the big staircase when I heard a laugh. I gulped. A laugh? From the top of the stairs. I backed up against the wall, and I saw the ghost, a very old lady, in a long dress and a black bonnet. She wore a heavy black veil in front of her face, but I could see her eyes through the veil. I could see them because they glowed bright red like fire. Wow, Stephanie cried. What did she do? The old ghost came sliding down the banister, he reported. She tossed back her head and screamed all the way down. And as she slid, her red eyes left a bright trail, like the tail of a comet. Dwayne and Stephanie haven't learned their lesson and agree to meet Seth the next night for some ghost hunting. We have a chapter about Dwayne building up anticipation for the ghost, but the most interesting thing that happens is Dwayne listens to a cassette tape on his Walkman. They reach the house at midnight and are greeted by a death prank via Seth, who collapses at their feet saying the ghost got him. But in the biggest twist so far, this doesn't scare Dwayne. The trio enter the house and Seth reminds them to be quiet because there's a night watchman they'll have to avoid. Seth goes in search of candles and Stephanie just goes missing suddenly. Dwayne sees a set of yellow eyes moving towards him, but it's not cats this time, just Seth and Stephanie returning with the candles. I guess Dwayne missed the part where Stephanie left with Seth. They explore the kitchen and Dwayne gets startled by pots and pans moving in this drafty old house. Dwayne gets scared like every other page, so he has some nerve terrorizing his neighborhood when he's the one literally jumping at every shadow. Seth stops to show off a dumbwaiter, which has to be haunted because dumbwaiters are always dangerous things in media. Dwayne isn't impressed though and says, "Thrills and chills." I wish I had known this phrase would be so prolific in Stein's writing because I would have tallied it up. Seth goes on to tell a story about the haunted dumbwaiter, where the cook kept sending up meals only to have them vanish before arriving. The cook decided that it was haunted and quit using it, but some kids decided to play in it one day. Little Jeremy took a ride up, only for it to become stuck between floors. When the other kids finally got it unwedged, there was no Jeremy, but there were 3 covered dishes. In the first was Jeremy's still beating heart, the second contained his eyes, and the third contained his teeth. This is fairly graphic for Goosebumps, and probably would have gotten my attention as a kid, so points on that ghost story. Dwayne and Stephanie tried to dismiss this as just a ghost story, but Dwayne is low-key terrified. They move into the butler's pantry, and when they turn around they see Seth locking him in. They demand to know what he's doing when Seth decides to drop the act. He's not Seth, he's Andrew. He reveals that, just like with the old sea captain, now that they've seen a ghost he can't let them go. Stephanie confronts him and is like, "You can't be Andrew, because you still have your head." And Andrew's like, "Oh no, this isn't mine, it's just one that I borrowed." He goes to pull off his head but stops when the kids beg him not to. Andrew then goes on to explain that he made himself visible during the tour group because they like the look of Dwayne's head and wants to use his instead. The kids beg Andrew to give them a chance to search for his head, but he's like, "No way, I've searched for 100 years. What makes you think you're so goddamn special that you'll find it?" They back against the pantry wall, and just when Andrew's about to decapitate Dwayne, the wall slides and gives way to a secret tunnel. They race down the tunnel only to find a concrete wall at the end. They hear Andrew coming for them and once again think they're cornered, but then Dwayne notices a ladder to a hole up in the ceiling. Not quite sure how they missed it, but it's convenient. Dwayne crawls up the ladder, only for the whole wall to give way, and they find themselves inside a hidden room with Andrew. Dwayne spots the ghostly head with shiny white hair and glowing green emerald eyes. He expects Andrew to be happy, but instead Andrew looks horrified. That's when the kids realize there's another ghost. This ghost is fully headless and slowly floats down. It lifts up the ghost head onto its headless ghost body. The ghost says thank you and then just vanishes without explanation, leaving them wondering who the fuck is this guy calling himself Andrew. Just then, Otto appears and is like, "God damn it, Seth, I told you to stop scaring kids." And then we learn that Seth is actually Otto's nephew. I thought this was a subversive little twist. The trio of kids try to explain to Otto that they actually saw a ghost, but he isn't buying it and wants him out of the house pronto. After their ghost adventure, Dwayne and Stephanie have repented and no longer are the Terror Twins. They've even found God and have given up on peeping. Dwayne joins the basketball team and Stephanie joins theater and gets cast as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. It's been half a year since they visited Hill House, but one day while passing by they decide to take a tour for old time's sake. Otto is thrilled to see them and quickly goes to grab Edna, their other favorite tour guide. They take a tour but are sad that doesn't hold any of the thrills it used to. While leaving the house, they're stopped by some cops who demand to know what they're doing in that house. The kids are like, "Duh, taking a tour, ACAB." The cops then let them know that Hill House has been out of business for months, so there's no way they could have taken a tour. Dwayne looks up and spots Otto and Edna in the window, who quickly fade away because, surprise, they're ghosts. And that's how this one ends, with a twist I kinda saw coming at the start of the book. The Headless Ghost got its own episode, which I thought was a decent adaptation, and I think I liked it a little bit more, even if Stephanie sucks extra in it. There weren't any notable actors in this one, so let's just start the episode. We have some creative editing choices in this opening shot.
Where are you?
These jump cuts are out of control.
Where are you? Andrew? Oh.
What is going on here? Am I having a stroke? I think it's Nosferatu.
You cannot leave.
Please.
So Stephanie remains an asshole, I'm seeing.
Getcha.
I like that he just let them back in the next day.
I'm glad to see our regulars have decided to behave themselves tonight.
Look at the quality of this painting. Yes, the head is behind the pillows. You solved it.
How about here? Nope.
I can only show you 4-second clips. This is the third time she's done this in under a minute.
Wayne, this time I'm not kidding.
Oh man, I can't believe I fell for that.
I like his silent hatred for these kids. Stephanie sucks extra in this episode.
Respect this, you old grouch!
Don't!
I need this camera to back up like 6 inches. I don't think Stephanie actually likes Dwayne, like, at all.
Smooth move.
Sorry.
I like that this kid dies via dumbwaiter out of impatience.
Until, finally, he reached too far.
I also like that the captain is an artist in this version.
Captain's ghost paints a portrait of his latest victim.
The music is making this scene even better.
I need your head, Dwayne.
Quick twist. Come right off. Snap.
I'm gonna pull your head off.
Wait. Maybe we could help you.
Just hold still.
Hey, don't wait!
Special effects.
What were you expecting? A dish of ice cream? Clumsy fool! It's a head, not a bowling ball. Me, girly girl, or you'll find out that my bite is worse than my bark.
Stephanie, you need better stranger danger.
Don't look so scared, Dwayne. What's he gonna do? Lecture me?
A proper asshole victim ending.
Now, my cocky little friend, welcome aboard. Yes, Stephanie, I warn you to show some respect for Hill House.
Please, I didn't mean it. Dwayne, help me.
Damn it, Dwayne. More special effects. This feels tacked on for no reason.
It's just the fixer-upper we've been looking for.
Overall, I thought The Headless Ghost was just an okay story. I didn't like Dwayne and Stephanie as our little peeping terror protagonists, and I wanted them to become the asshole victims in a final page twist. The highlights for me were the dummy elevator ghost story and Steph's ghost story about the woman on the stairs. I thought the structure of this book was weird, with unneeded flashbacks and awkwardly inserted ghost stories. It just didn't flow great and needed editing. I liked the twist of Seth not actually being a ghost, but the final twist with Edna and Otto was a little obvious. I'm gonna give this one a generous 3 out of 5 bowling balls. There were moments I really enjoyed, but also some really clunky parts. Okay, on to our totals. The Headless Ghost didn't have any vomit, shoulder scares, it was only a dreams or hassle victims, but it did have some 90s moments. In Getting Jiggy with the 90s, we had 3 90s moments. These included platform sneakers, cassette tapes, and a Walkman. This raises our Goosebumps total to 129 jiggy 90s moments. In It's a Prank Bro, I counted 6 pranks. These included Dwayne and Stephanie terrorizing the neighborhood, Stephanie's rash fake out, Stephanie's monster in the bushes, pretending to be attacked by a ghost, and Seth's ultimate prank at the end. This brings our total to 90 It's a Prank Bros. The Headless Ghost had a pretty typical amount of chapter cliffhangers with a total of 12. I thought this book contained a lot of untraditional chapter endings, like Dwayne asking himself if he was going to do something, and then starting the next chapter saying, yes, I will go do that scary thing. This raises our Goosebumps total to 457. The clunky cliffhanger word for this book has to be chapters 1 to 2, with Dwayne saying the creature tore his head off, which is obviously not true considering it's in the middle of a flashback he's describing to us in present day. Shocker ending. Our big twist for this book really wasn't that big and kind of just a classic ghost story. It was just surprise, Otto and Ed are actually ghosts. This raises our Goosebumps series total to 30. Well, that's it for The Headless Ghost. I didn't really feel that strongly either way on this one. I didn't think it was particularly interesting, but it had a handful of good moments. The next week is The Abominable Snowman of Pasadena, which I recall being disappointed by as a kid, with no memory of why. Maybe it's because Bigfoot used to scare the shit out of me and I had high expectations. Let me know in the comments what you thought of The Headless Ghost. Which ghost story was your favorite? What did you think of Peeping Dwayne and Stephanie? Have you read The Haunting in Hill House? Also, what did you think of my ghostly horror clips this week? Anyways, as always, thanks again for watching, and make sure you subscribe for
The pride, the love,